get set up here, I'm just going to introduce the speakers. So this section is called Blended Learning Approaches, and we have Shehzad Naroo, and we also have Fabrizio Zeri. Did I say that properly? There you go. Welcome.
number of PhD theses published in the area of teaching about blended learning. Okay, what is mean learning? It's not simple to understand. Probably from a perspective, from a student perspective, it should be very simple. Our students know that their goal is to understand the materials, remember the materials for the examination, and retain information past the exam and use it. But probably they have to do more, because it's not only this. For example, in our field, we have to deal with passion. Every passion is different. So you have to retain information and use in different contexts. So it's something that has to deal with problem solving. It's not only learning. And so you have to learn not only knowledge, but also procedure and so on. So in order to go indeed in learning and teaching processes, we need to go in the psychology of learning. There are a lot of schools, a lot of approaches to the learning. And one of the most important probably is the cognitivism, but also there was, for example, behaviorism that deal with the rewarded. You remember probably, you know, all the Skinner box, the negative and positive reward for the rest and so on. But what I'm going to do is to show a model, a very, very old model in 1968 about how our memory works. And probably you know very well how this model is an action sequence and shaping model. And we have a working memory. It's like the short-term memory of the RAM on our PC. And we have a long-term memory. And so we organize the knowledge, the new knowledge, but we have just a brief time to organize the stuff and to transfer to the long-term memory. And this acts through several processes. So we are selecting words, and selecting images, because the two main channels for our memory are visual channel and auditory channel. There are more, but these are the main ones. And we have to organize words, organize images, and transfer, integrate with previous knowledge. Okay, there are three cognitive science principles of learning. Okay, human beings are dual channels, mainly dual channels beings. So we can analyze, we can deal with words and picture, and okay, and these are separate. So we can provide to our students separate information, and they cannot act cannot interpret one with another, but they can act to improve the learning. And we have a working memory that a limited span. It's a very old concept and very well-known concept. And finally, we organize our stuff, our knowledge in something that should be current with the previous knowledge. And this is the reason why we can store a lot of information. Probably nobody knows how much is our memory in terms of span, our long-term memory. Nobody knows how much we can store in our brain. Okay, so we are dual channel processor. What does it mean? For example, in the previous example, we provide you only written instruction about the notes. So, and something reached point, reached goal, and someone reached goals. And but what about if you provided you visual information and also written information? So both the channels, so written and visual or only visual. Okay, let's do. The interesting point is what could work for a person could not work for another person. It depends on the expertise of the people. And it's a very difficult case to catch. Okay, so now let's have a look once again to the double-headed node, but now only with the visual information, a visual input. So the channel that I'm using is the visual one. So please have a look to what I'm doing, and I can explain because I'm Italian. I use hands, I use face, and I will use also words, but in Italian. And nobody that can understand Italian? Okay, perfect. Two understand, so it's perfect. Okay, now I'm explaining you visually how to tie the double head net. Ok, prendete la corda, in spagnolo posso dire, ok, girate la corda, prendete il capo della corda e passatelo dietro e lasciatelo cadere. Ok? Ora avete l'otto semplice. Ok? Ora, supponete che la mia cinta sia di bravo, prendete la corda, mettetela nella cinta, la passate, ok? Passate la corda vicino alla corda precedente e come dei sassi la avvolgete in questo modo, ok? E ripassatela dentro, vediamo? Ok? And le G sono ferme in francese, ok? Okay, now, is there anybody that can try? No, it's not for us. Okay, it doesn't work for us. It doesn't work because it can keep you, but if you have a loop, it doesn't go to the valve, so it can keep but not on you. Okay? Okay, let's try again. You have had only visual information. Can you tie the notes now? Can you try it? Probably the written information are better than the visual one. Is there anybody that can type? Okay. You got it. Perfect. And you didn't type before? No. Okay. We have a guy that tied the notes perfectly. Thank you. With the visual information. Now, what it didn't work is the visual information were wrong without written information. Now I'm providing you a double input, visual and written. So let's have a look at this video. But please, but we have a double kind of input with oral information. In Italian, oral, and written like subtitles in English. So it's not such to explain in a language and give visual information. But let's see the video, and after you can try.
Impariamo a come si fa il nodo A8 o detto anche nodo fine confezione. A che cosa serve? Serve a collegare il brago alla catena di sicurezza, cioè
Okay, we have the subtitle.
la corda nell'agente di sicurezza per il compagno e questo fa sì che io possa arrampicare sul corso viaggio senza rischiare di fare corda obbedico nelle due possiamo girare e lo ripassiamo come delle saghe. Perfetto. Ricordiamo di stringere sempre quindi i capi.
Okay. Is there anybody that was able to reach the goal? Not more, not anymore. Okay. Usually, we are all educators and we know very well if we match the visual information with the written or oral information, verbal information, the capacity, our ability to transfer information to teach is more effective. But sometimes it doesn't work. For example, this is called modality effect, when the two kind of inputs give a more stronger capacity of teaching. But what have you just seen is the divided attention effect. So we were seeing at the picture and video, and you had the subtitles in another position, and this is not very good for learning, because you have to divide the attention between the video and the written. So the two channels are not used together in improve your capacity to transmit information. Okay, let's go. So another point. So we have seen that the first one. Human beings are dual channel processor. But human beings are also beings that have limited capacity processor. What does it mean? You know very well this. And what I'm going to do now is to try to have a look to your limits, the limitation of your short-term memory. So we have a task now. I'm presenting to you several figures, one after one. So one figure, second figure, for 2 words. Your task, without writing anything. So you don't have to write anything. You cannot write anything. You have to remember the perfect sequence of the numbers. Okay? Did you catch the point? So the task is remember exactly the sequence of the number that you have. Okay? Let's go. Okay, don't touch the keyboard. Okay, is there anyone that can repeat for me the series? Okay, okay, one person, not all together. Okay,
Carol, come up here. Okay.
Along, please. Okay, start. Okay, is there anyone that can do along?
0650123061.
No. Okay, I can show for you. I have to try an effort. Okay, let me think about the series. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure if it's correct. Let's try to see if it's correct. Okay. It's easy. It's really easy because these are my numbers. This is my number of home. And this is my office number. They are not here with my short-term memories, but with my long-term memory. I can use my long-term memories for remind everything. Except the password that Morgan told this morning. But anyway, I can show you the link of the reference of this. This is probably one of the most influential papers ever published in psychology research. It's the magical 5 ± 7 number. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost the median, almost the average. So human beings can remind 7 chunks, not figures, but chunks. Chunks means something that can be grouped together. For example, for me, 06 is a chunk because it's the code of Rome. And so I can remember easily. 02 is the code of Milan. 0121 is the code of Birmingham. Unfortunately, I have to learn this. And so, a problem what we have in learning is we have to deal with a short-term memory that has limited amount of information. Okay, so let's go back to the story of psychology. At the real beginning, actually, from Schifrin thought that what we can store in long-term memory has to pass in short-term memory. But Frank Lower, two Canadian psychologists, demonstrated that the way in which we store information depends on how in deep we process this information. So the deeper is the level of processing, the better is memorizing of information. And on this vein, the next slide shows that it's not simple how unfortunately the model begins more and more difficult. We can recognize here the working memory in the center and the long-term storage. But what I would like to do is, if we have a learner, so our students, that and it could be interpreted like an independent variable, and we have to reach a learning. Can you check? Can you go forward? Okay, we have to reach the learning of the process. So that the independent variable, and that is the dependent variable. What affects this way? Not only short-term memory, so working memory, long-term storage, but a lot of things. Can you show this? Okay. So learner control is really important. In the previous example, you was not able to control the information flows. So I provided you input by my personal pace, and it affects the learner. Okay, motivation, for example, and so on. So there are a lot of variables that can affect the process. Motivation. One thing is to stay here and to learn. Okay, you have to learn a double note. One thing is to stay there. Now you have to cross this ladder. Okay, and if you can see, there is a cliff of, unfortunately, you can see in the next slide. Can you see the cliff here? We are here, my daughter here, and if you have to cliff, if you have to pass on the ladder, and you see the cliff, now you have to pay the maximum attention to the ladder, and you will see, you will try, you will see, and then perhaps you pass on the ladder. Okay, so motivation is strongly important in the process. For example, the Yerkes-Dodson law demonstrated that motivation is not always linked to the performance of learning. This is very useful in sport, for example. If you on the axis you see the level of arousal, in other words, the motivation. And on the y-axis, you see the efficiency of memory. The curve, the function, is really strange because it's an inverted U-shaped curve. So for a while, the level of motivation is a bit worse. But after a certain point, if you add arousal and motivation, you can stress the students, and you can obtain a contrary effect. So the performance of learning decreases, and it's very famous. Attention. Attention is another point, really important. Everyone knows that if the students pay attention, they can understand better, perhaps sometimes. Or we have no attention, it's terrible. But, but attention is a very strong process. So what I'm going to show you is an experiment, and you have to, the task is written in the first part of the slide, and you have to do this, what the slide has. Please pay attention to the task. How many times? Okay, let's go. Okay, stop it. Okay, how many of you count correctly 16 passes? Please raise your hands. Okay, almost half of the audience. But the answer, the question is another. Did you spot the gorilla?
Yes.
Okay, how many of you did see the gorilla? Okay, approximately 50%. So let's have a look. Let's have a look. It's approximately what the research says about this.
Probably saw it. But did you notice the curtain changing color? Or later on the black
Okay. Let's rewind. Let's rewind it. Now they are two black, two women in black. Okay. So this kind of paradigm in psychology, social psychology, demonstrates that attention is a very strong and powerful things that can variable that can affect the learning process, and we know everyone knows very well these things. Control, the last aspect. The pace of the input is really critical. And usually when we deliver a face-to-face teaching, usually students, especially not Italian ones, Italian are terrible, they ask everything, they can stop you. But usually the students don't stop you. So follow your pace, and it's not really good. Instead, in e-learning or in computer-based learning, a student can block the page, can block the flows of information, and can rewind information, and stop, and see it, and so on. For example, there is a theory, cognitive load theory, that says that the information don't have to overload the short-term, the working memory. Otherwise, the entire process can be full, can be decreased its potential. For example, we see here they transform the raw points of efficiency of mental effort on the x-axis and the performance of learning on the y-axis in z-scores. And you can see, for example, that we have here two different methods of learning, the A1 and the B1. The most effective one is the A1 because it gives you the best performance with low effort, with low cognitive mental effort. And that's the reason why we start with simple things to transfer to our students. And they, on this material, we build things always more difficult than the beginning. And that's the reason why. Okay. So let's look once again at blended learning. I would like to explain a little bit because the motivation of students can increase. If you give them some information, for example, the first part of the note is called the A, the simple A note. It's done in this way, very simply. Okay, can you see the A? Okay. Can you see the A? They is in the sign of Savoy. Savoy was the family, royal Italian family. Fortunately or not, we had the royal family up to the Second World War. But if you can see, there is the hate note in the how do you say this? The crest. Okay, the crest of the royal family. Okay, let's have a look to the second slide. Why is so important? Why is so important this kind of note? Because it can allow you to rest to the harness. When you go, for example, on the rock, you climb the rock, or when you climb, when you walk on the permafrost, on the glacier, and you have the pass. How do you say it?
Purpose.
Pass. Okay, purpose. Okay. And so it's really important that this kind of note can allow you to stay with tied with your mates. It's really important. But what we would like to do now is to try to deliver the information that you need to reach the goal. So to tie the taking on, I hope the whole the audience can tie, but by yourself. You have a car, you have a laptop. We can provide you a link, very simple.
So can you get your iPads out or your laptop or your phone, whatever? You need to go online to look at this next slide. We'll share with the link from all these things out. So if you can open up the YouTube browser, a browser that's the YouTube URL, and just type in through, you don't have to type the whole link, but just type in these 4 keywords. Teach me to climb.
Okay. When you are ready, you can see the video by yourself.
You should get onto this link here.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's in English.
but you're going to watch it yourselves.
Yeah.
So get onto that link. Teach me to climb.
Okay, and you can try to tie the note, doing what is better for you. So to stop the video, and you have 5 minutes from now. You can stop the video, you can rewind it, up to reach the goal. So to tie the note, okay? And one more word. Very lovely.
You don't have the link. How many of you actually watch the link and go back and forth, back and forth, things like that? Watch the The point here is that the learning is in your control now. So you can control how much information goes in, which information you find complicated, which information you need to revisit. If anyone's got it, we've got one more prize to give out to the first hand up.
You can't go climbing there.
I copied the picture. Yes, I just copied the picture. Because it was the section of captions. It was visual as well. And that's actually a picture. That's right. You can just work out it goes like that. And, yeah. Pretty
Okay, I think we're going to move on. So, no one's stuck their hand up. So, we're going to give our last prize to James over here. Not as a sympathy vote. He did actually get the lot the very first time. Actually, you made a very good point. The very first time that we tried that, we had the written instruction on a slide, but also there was an image. So there was actually a visual input. So there was an image as well. So good one, James. Let's bring this back now to our field. Let's bring this back to contact lenses on education. And I want to talk about our experiences at Aston University and how we use blended learning in our teaching programs. And the only reason I'm talking about this is for those programs that I know very well. So, first of all, let's look at refraction, for example. Now, here's our list of lectures for our students when we introduce them to refraction techniques. And this would be a similar list in most of your modules on refraction, I would guess. You'd have, and it builds up on previous knowledge, so you'd start off with, we actually teach retinoscopy in our first year, which is why this is, so it takes retinoscopy revision. So we carry on with the retinoscopy side of things. We move into ophthalmoscopy revision, the students have already done that as well. Combine that into the subjective elements as well, go through history taking, binocular balancing, near vision assessments, eye movements, vergence, coming down all the way through muscle balance, etc., and stereopsis testing at the end. So, and this is not a standalone module, obviously, it follows on from a module which teaches retinoscopy and ophthalmoscopy as well. So, but if we gave those lectures to students, I'm sure most of you will agree, the students will not learn how to binocularly balance. They will not learn how to objectively refract. Those lectures alone will not teach them that. So, of course, what do we do, and what do we all do, and you guys do this as well? We give them practical training. We have a practical lab, and I like the picture from from Monica, from Raji from India, where they have the nice cubicles. Exactly the same as what you do. What Raji was doing was quite interesting, where she said that she was putting the lectures and the practicals in the same room. So in fact, you could sort of start with your lecture and then say, right, let's go to the back of the room and now try this. We actually don't do it like that. We actually do our lecture in the morning, and in the afternoon they come to the clinic. So it's a similar sort of thing, but in a separate room, but a very nice idea. And so in our practical supplements to the lectures, you would have an example where the tutor will teach them refraction and show them those things and say, you listen to this in your lecture, now let's try it in the practical room. And all those techniques that we've just seen on the lecture list will have a practical backup as well. Let's bring that into contact lenses, exactly the same sort of thing. This is the module that my colleague James Wilson teaches. We call the second year contact lenses. It's their first experience with contact lenses. However, these students will have learned some basics with the slit lamp already in a previous module. So that's already built up that knowledge. So the lecture list or the seminar list, and again, your own contact lens lectures or introduction to contact lens lectures will probably be similar to this. So we start with the slit lamp, and I think again, Craig and Deepa were saying that they start with what they perceive to be the easiest stuff, the daily disposables, and then go on to solutions, and then go on to non-disposable lenses, and then looking at gas penetrating skills. And it's kind of that sort of thing, the same sort of build-up on previous knowledge. In this module, we don't have what we call advanced contact lens elements like ortho-K, scleral lenses, keratoconic fittings, post-practice surgery fittings, those sort of things. That actually goes into the module that follows on from this. So this is sort of the basics of contact lens practice. But again, that lecture list alone is not sufficient to teach those students contact lens practice. We couldn't just give them a lecture on how to assess a GP lens and show them a couple of videos and expect them to be able to do it. So, of course, we supplement that with practicals, and in fact, not just practicals, but also assessments. And these are very similar to, again, Raji's ideas of the OSCE type assessments that she's doing. Very similar sort of thing. Essentially, we're marking off in the UK, people understand the terminology, the core competencies that the GOC set for this subject. So, for example, tear film in week 6, somewhere in week 6, yeah, there it is, week 7, sorry, they've had a tier thumb exams technique practical, so it will follow on from the lecture on that area. So that's what most of us do, and that's what we did for years. And then James came up with this and put together this suggestion: why don't we give them the lectures beforehand? And in fact, we were doing that for years. We were actually putting PowerPoint lectures on our virtual learning environment, and the students were looking at the lectures. James went a little step further and said, well, why I can pre-record my lectures. So when I'm standing in front of the student, I don't need to say to them, the slit lamp has a joystick control, it's an X5 manipulator base, you turn it right and left, it goes up and down. I don't have to tell them that in a lecture. They can listen to that at home. When they come in, I can actually show them, so I can actually do a more interactive seminar. And in fact, I can also then say to them, I saw a patient last week where this happened, and I had to do this. Or I saw a patient in practice 10 years ago, and this happened. So you can bring in your own clinical experiences, your own practical knowledge, and it becomes a little bit more interactive. I think Etty this morning was asking Pat how you would make students engage with you. It's an old question for us. How do we get students to engage? And you know that's the Monday morning lecture where you say, okay, who can give me any reasons why we do, any reasons why people wear contact lenses? And we look at dumb blank faces. How do we get them to interact? Well, if they've already got the information, hopefully they will interact more easily with you. And what we have here are what we call virtual lectures. So this is the list of pre-recorded PowerPoint slides. Nothing complex, nothing really technologically advanced, just PowerPoint, which has an option in it to narrate. A PowerPoint narrated lecture that the student can look at in their own time, and then come into what we now call a seminar or a lecture, where we won't read off slides to them, but we will actually give them more clinical tips and practical experiences and clinical knowledge, etc., works examples.
Improper use of care products can lead to problems. Residual surfactant cleaner that's not rinsed off the contact lens can sting if it's left on the lens and inserted onto the eye. This would lead to immediate discomfort. But gradually, as the reflex lacrimation kicks in, the tears would rinse away the residual surfactant.
Yeah, I'm not going to play the whole sound because you don't need to listen to the whole thing, but that's an example of a narrated slide. And that's a lecture that I gave in James' module on care products where I've narrated it. Now, one of the things you may have noticed there is I wasn't just reading off the slide, so I was actually sort of saying the main points on the slide and a little bit more. So there are different inputs here. The student can then print off these slides and read the core text. They can also listen to the narrated lecture and get a little bit more. They can also turn up to the seminar slot, and then I will talk about this, and I'll say, on slide 51, I talked about this. Well, this is also important, and this is something that you need to take into consideration. I saw a patient last week, and this happened, and the patient downstairs in the clinic, this happened. What would we do? Anyone got any ideas? So we will talk it through. So it's that sort of thing. And then I'd say, and this afternoon, we're going to look at these in the practical lab as well. So there's all different sort of inputs to the learning experience. And in fact, for the module that James runs in our second year for contact lenses, this is the full program spec. There's a list of virtual lectures, and these are pre-recorded on PowerPoint with sound. Then we have our seminar support of those, who the person is going to be. We have some of the companies coming in and giving them support as well. And what are the practicals that are related to those seminars and recorded lectures? We've actually gone a couple of steps further with this now, and we've introduced this into a lot of our teaching, and probably all of our teaching will go this way. All of our final year is like this, a lot of our second year, some of our first year is starting to go this way as well. But we have an optom program, Masters Optometry program. It's not exactly the same as the one in Manchester, whereas it's not a registrable degree. So these are students who finish their 3 years at bachelor's level, but they don't exit with a degree. Instead, they stay on with us as students, but they enter their pre-registration or their internship year. And during that year, they engage in a virtual learning environment, narrated lectures, supported by a taught element, supported by their own in-practice clinical experience in their pre-reg, and they submit case reports and coursework to us as well. And at the end of that, they also sit exams, so there's a full assessment at the end of that, written exams as well as practical exams, and they also come in for some sessions with us as well, periodically. and then they will leave with M-Optom, and hopefully by then they'll also finish their pre-registration year and their internship as well. So we've gone a couple of steps further. We've also got a postgraduate program, which again is building on this blended learning platform. Our D-Optom program was designed really for people in practice, optometrists in practice who want a higher qualification, but they can't afford the time to leave practice, so they engage in a distance learning doctorate level program. It's not a PhD, but it's a doctorate level, so it's the equivalent level of PhD. Again, it's a distance learning program. There is a virtual learning environment, narrated lectures, supported by their own in-practice clinical experience, submit case reports and coursework, and we have multiple exit levels, so they can leave with a certificate, a diploma, a master's, or a doctorate. And the difference between the doctorate and the master's would be how much research they engage in during this program. Very similar, I suppose, to one of the fellowship programs and high qualifications that are out there. Now, I'm not going to talk about all of these, but I'm just going to really talk about the IACLE, Fellowship of the International Association of Contact Lenses Educators, where, and those of you who've done the fellowship examination of IACLE will have engaged in the distance learning program. It's a program that we have on our virtual learning environment for IACLE, where you can engage in the lecture content. You also have the resource, and you can have that on DVDs, CDs, printed files. That's the IACLE contact lens course. There are other online resources on the IACLE membership page as well. And of course, you will attend meetings. Not maybe like this one, this is a little bit of an exception, but the trainer type meetings in your local area, or the regular IACLE fellows meetings, and of course your own experience. So all those things are the ways that you learn the elements you need to pass that fellowship exam. And the other fellowships with the American Academy, BCLA, European Academy, they have different ways that you gain that reward. They have different methods where you get through that. So it's how the research, take case reports. But I'm not going to talk about all of those. We also have in our university now an international undergraduate program. And in Italy, for example, optometry as a profession isn't recognised. Many places in Italy, there's about 7 universities that teach optometry. But the scope of practice is limited. So although they teach optometry, people who graduate with that qualification can't necessarily work as optometrists in the way that maybe you and I think optometrists would work. And linked to that, the scope of teaching is also limited. And for example, they may have a lecture on cycloplegia refraction, but they will not be able to use cycloplegia because the optometrist doesn't exist in the profession, so they can't use cycloplegia, cyclopentally. So you couldn't teach that, and the students couldn't practice it in-house. They might have a lecture on it, but that doesn't make them proficient in using that medication, that drug. Opticians do have a profession, and a lot of them do want to upscale, and they do want to get changes in their legislation so they can have optometry in Italy as well. How do you do that? We need to educate. How do we do that? We need to get some blended learning and the different concepts of models of teaching. We have a program with a partner in Italy, which we've also now rolled out to a partner in Singapore, and the entry requirement is a 2-year optician's diploma. They get direct entry into our 2nd year of our BSc honours. The lectures are delivered by virtual learning. They get support from their local teachers. The local tutors give them seminar support, and the local tutors give them local practical training. What about those elements that they can't learn in Italy or in Singapore? What about those things? Cycloplegia, dilation, contact telemetry. Well, I think Julie was talking earlier on about these sort of model eyes and the model heads. They use those as well, but that's not the full clinical experience. So we supplement that with an intensive clinical training month in the UK. So they come to us in the UK and register as UK students in that month, and we teach them the things that they can't learn and can't do in Italy. So although we teach them that, they go back and they can't do them, but they've learned them practically. So we have an intensive practical training month. No lectures, just practical training. They return to Italy for their final year, and then they have exams and coursework and so this is the way that we've used our sort of experiences of blended learning in our different programs. So I hope that's a nice overview. To you.
Okay, the last question. We have time. Blended learning, does it work? We can give you our experience, and I could say it works, but probably literature can help us. And there is one big review about blended learning. It was a meta-analysis and review of 99 studies on online, so not only blended learning, but also online teaching, only peer-reviewed studies. And the conclusion of this work of the U.S. Department of Education was students participating in online or blended instruction produce stronger learning outcomes than those that participate only in face-to-face instruction. Obviously, we don't have to drop out face-to-face instruction or face-to-face teaching because it can provide us a strong weapon towards our students. For example, through face-to-face teaching, we can motivate students. If you have a student that cannot be motivated by herself or himself, it's really difficult with online teaching. Why, for example, the traditional face-to-face would allow you to do this. Okay, that's is the last slide. I don't know if this way to deliver this workshop was effective. I don't know. Anyway, if you want to leave your educator job, you know now how to type, and you can apply in the morning. If you want in Italy or wherever you want. I don't know if you want to add something.
I was just wondering why you left your phone number on that whiteboard. I want to tell you why.
Thank you very much. Any questions for, yes, hold on a second.
So, this is for Shehzad. Seeing the change in teaching methods, instead of classroom teaching, changing to the video that we share to the students, does it anyway end up to changes in the fee structure of the course? Because it does change the technology or the space that we use.
That's a really good question. The question was about using these different approaches to affect the fee structure. For us, actually, no, it doesn't. We haven't increased our fees, we haven't changed our fees because we do it this way. In some ways, if you look at the traditional lecture, the student sees the lecturer for 1 hour, and then they go to a practice class for 2 hours, and that was the traditional way we taught content. We've actually doubled up their content time, because we've given them the lecture beforehand without sound effects, and then we give them the 1 hour lecture. So in fact, they get, hopefully, a better service. From our point of view, we only have to record the lectures once. And of course, the content things do change, so every couple of years we need to renew the lectures and add in different products, different solutions, different techniques, sagittal height now. So we have to add in different elements. But once it's recorded, that can be used multiple years. And in fact, for us also, the benefit as an educator, and whether this is a controversial thing to say or not, but universities are businesses at the end of the day, and our product is our qualifications, our degree, and we are selling these products. So for us as a business, as a university, it enables us to sell that product to the markets, and so we can integrate it into the international program and things like that.
Hi, Delicious from India. Thanks, Shehzad and Fabrizio. I think it was very enjoyable. Couple of questions. First one is about the video recordings. You expect the sometimes to go through the lecture and come back, right? Did you face any non-compliance among the students?
Oh, yes.
How do you manage it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I like the way you spoke about this. It was a very good lecture, and I was waiting for the buts. So thank you for not putting the buts in there. How do we, well, how do I put this? Yes, students don't always listen to, so yes, in our university we have 131 students in our final year, for example. And the students have a narrated lecture on the virtual learning environment. So I teach a third year module, so when the students come to me in the lecture theatre and I do my seminar after the delivery, they all don't turn up. I don't get 131 students attending. And Jenkins has actually approached this because he tells the students if they don't attend his seminar, he won't let them into his practical. He doesn't let them into the practical in the afternoon. I don't have a practical with my module, so I can't do that exactly. So my attendance does drop, yes. So I would probably estimate that I would get 75%, two-thirds to three-quarters, that's the level of students will attend my seminar. Now, I see that in two ways. Firstly, the ones who haven't attended and haven't engaged will still have the material, the core material, but they will miss out on those extra little tips. The ones who are there will benefit from the extra little tips. So they're going to get rewarded because they're going to get those little anecdotes and those clinical stories, my core jokes, and they're going to experience that as well. So I think it kind of worked. One thing, I remember saying this years ago, we often worry about those students who are at the bottom end, and we want to get them through the exams. But there are these high achieving students as well. Not that I ever was one, equally. And we need to make sure that they get their full learning experience and they get their value for their money as well.
Thanks, Shehzad. The second one is for Fabrizio.
Can I get something to what Shehzad has suggested? For example, for Italian experience, what about the Italian student joining to us in university? So, for, actually, I'm not involved now, so I'm still not involved in the project. But what I know about it is the student attending 100% of lecture, because there is also a cultural gap. If you provide the virtual learning environment in another language, in another culture, probably the students need to speak about the lecture, the tools with the tutor mainly. And so they are attending all the lectures, and they need it for the end.
The other one is about time and not, I died my mark 10 years back. Some people could actually read the instructions, and some people saw you doing that and could do that. Was it just chance, or is it something to do with the learning styles of people?
Yeah. For example, I'm strongly visual. If I don't see things, I cannot learn. I have to see. You can tell me the story, but I cannot understand. If you show me things, I can memorize quickly. And it depends on that. It's a personal attitude, this one. And so we should provide both, or even more than two channels. For example, what about the procedure? We have to deal with procedures that are practical. So you have to see, you have to understand, you have to practice. For example, how to move the lamp, how to insert, how to put contact lenses on. And this is not, you cannot learn if you read or if you see. How you have to do it. And it's another part of the story.
I think we have a couple more questions.
One quick thing to add to that. In Gabe's presentation about the TVCI, and I remember one of the training programs I went to, I think Jane, you wrote this lecture, I think, where you talk about VARC, visual, audio, reading, recitation, and kinetic, is that correct? Yeah. So these are the 4 ways that people learn. So these are the 4 ways people learn. So it's essential, probably, to say, it's the learning styles. It's something which I know you teach as well.
You mentioned about your top. Many things have changed, but then you have to get a degree to start pre-graduate. And if you don't graduate, then how do you get around it?
You need to be, Jeff, do you want to answer that? Yeah, let James answer.
Yeah, so essentially they've all got the necessary marks to have a degree, and they have a guaranteed degree even if they don't finish the year on top. So that was the deal done with the General Optical Council. The college along with that will tell you that. But yes, so they essentially have a degree, but you don't give them a degree because they can go on and get the full masters. So they need to get at least 50% rather than the traditional 40% undergraduate.
Another question? Yes, that's for Shehzad. Just understanding the method of how do you pass on this lecture to the student. They would be only able to access it, or there's somebody who can be on the public domains, or how do they do that? And a time period is fixed for them?
Well, we use Blackboard, and I'm sure a lot of people use Blackboard as well. So with Blackboard, you can put your virtual lecture, your narrated lecture on Blackboard for a limited period of time. So you can say the lecture will be available on Tuesday afternoon between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock. You can do that. We actually don't do that. We actually say the lecture is there on the virtual learning environment, and if you want to come back to it 6 months' time when you're revising over the Christmas holidays, you can look at it again. But the student has a unique access code. So that student can, we can also monitor that. So Going back to the lecture question about engaging the students, we can monitor which students have engaged, which students have actually looked at the lecture as well.
I have a question. I'm sure that most of you already have lectures ready because that's what you do and teach. So a question I have for you is, how easy is it to dictate over your lecture? Was that an easy process?
It's a very easy process. The only thing is you need a good microphone. Don't get one of these that plugs into the 3.5 millimeter jack. Get a USB one from Amazon. They cost about probably $50, £30, something like that. It's a good microphone.
So is this an option in PowerPoint?
Yeah.
So we could do a demo tomorrow or something like that.
Yeah, that would be great if we could do a demo, because I think a lot of us already have the lectures. We're not thinking of redoing the lecture. We just want to add maybe a little bit of that. The second question, just while you call that up, maybe Fabrizio, you can answer this one, is do the students like this? You mentioned that the students that engage do better, but do they like learning on their own?
Well, it's not a simple question because it depends on the culture. For example, we came from a very traditional kind of teaching in Italy. I'm talking about Italy at this moment, and I'm thinking about the optometry teaching. So students expect to have a face-to-face teaching process, and so the process is new. Everything is new. Can scare you. But usually we find the kids are calm and more easy to use it.
You also mentioned about learning in different modalities, and I think most people who have had a hands-on workshop, the students really come out of that experience saying, oh my God, that was really great, I learned it in class, but to actually touch it, put it on the eye and do that, that's probably where they have the most powerful learning experience, and some that will stick with it for a long time. So those hands-on opportunities, I think, that are great because it brings in that's are we ready?
Yeah, I was just going to show you. So record slideshow, that's all it is. It's just as simple as that. Go into that one and it says, do you want to start narrations from a certain point? So this lecture is on blended learning approaches, Shehzad Naroo Fabrizio Zeri. That's Fabrizio and his daughter. That's me, believe it or not. And that's definitely me. Okay. So this lecture is on blended learning approaches, Shehzad Naroo Fabrizio Zeri. That's Fabrizio and his daughter. That's me, believe it or not. And that's definitely me.
Wait a second.
No, they don't.
Make it PDF?
Yeah.
Make it a PDF?
Yeah. The question was, does the student have to receive the PowerPoint? No, they don't. In fact, that's what I was just about to show you. You can package the lecture up on different platforms, and we use Adobe Presenter. So let me just show you that very quickly. That's what it's typing into. So this is our sort of a version of that. This is the stat one, so this is the view the students see. But if I go to the Genius module contact lenses, it's probably the most relevant example here. There's all sorts of information here on the home page. Okay, let's go to
resources at the end.
Is it resources, James?
Yeah.
So, okay, yes. This is slit lamp line microscopy, and click on that somewhere.
On the second one down.
So then,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, welcome to this lecture on the slit lamp, arguably the most important anterior eye instrumentation that you will use in contact lens practice. My name is Professor James Wilson.
Well, so the beginning, didn't you?
It is important to revise the anatomy of the anterior eye.
Okay. So you can navigate through as well, so you can, and you can stop at any point. So you can say, I listened to the first 5, or I didn't listen to slide 10,
I think this is great, but I have a question for those that do use it. Some of us are obviously concerned about other people using our presentation. So how do you safeguard, if you want, that can they download that, change a few slides, and kind of call it their own?
Yeah, so the nice thing about packaging it is people can't steal it. So it is a complete package, seen through that board. You can record directly into things like Adobe Presenter. I never do because it's much easier to work on PowerPoint, so I can change material on a slide. If you want to re-record the narration of one slide, you do as Shehzad did. You can choose the record from this slide, and at the end, if you press escape rather than going on to the next slide, then it will only record that one again. So it's very easy then to update the material. And the other thing I've learned over the years is if you're talking about general slides, you try and make your comments more general, because that way you don't have to change the narration. So if you're looking at a trend, you talk about a trend rather than a particular year, because that way you can just change the graph very easily. You only need to re-record if there's a bigger change.
James, do you want to just say how you convert from PowerPoint to Adobe Presenter?
To convert, you basically need the Adobe Presenter software, and it has the option to upload your PowerPoint, and then it's clear. That's actually where we use administrators, so we have an administrator at the school who does that. So it means that I can just concentrate on my normal PowerPoint. I send it off to him, he packages it. The other advantage in packaging is it makes it smaller because the narration is quite large. So again, in terms of putting it onto your virtual environments, it's sort of easier to do. And just one of the things that sort of came up, one of the reasons that really pushed me to go this way was students always complaining they didn't have enough practical time. And the danger is if you give a standard lecture, then in your practicals you start doing your demonstrations and things, in which case you use up half of your practical time with students without hands-on instruments. So the way I do it now, because it's a narrated lecture in advance, my time with them is a seminar. As Shehzad said, I don't know how many people are here. It's not compulsory for students to turn up to your lectures. Maybe it's going to be as expected. So in the UK, it is not compulsory. So what you would get, and so I insist that they come to my seminar because it's not a lecture, it's interactive. So I do a lot of questions and prepare them for exams, but I do also prepare them for the practicals. So I'll wheel the slip around in next up to a data projector, we'll have people out the front, we'll have a look at various things together. So when they get into the practicals, it is 100% hands-on time. We're not going to do demonstrations again. There's demonstrators there to help them individually, but it means that they're 100% hands-on. So I've sort of doubled my practical time without impacting me or my demonstrators. And likewise, if they complain that they don't have enough time, well, there's only so much you can do.
Just a quick question, how many students do you have in your seminars?
So this year, 132. Yeah. But it's amazing what you can do with them. So I do a lot of interactive questions. I know we're going to have a look at Socrative later in the week, which is a way that they can vote on their phones. So I'll have multiple choice questions up, they can all vote and we'll talk through the answers. I nicked a little technique from Phil, and that is to have a counter. So a timer in the corner, so I'll put a question up. They've got 3 minutes to answer that. I will then collect in 6 of those answers. So they write on a piece of paper, I shuffle them up, put one on the visualizer, and we mark it live. Because again, what you find is if you put a question to the students, they all go, yeah, we can answer that. Get them to write it down on a piece of paper on their own, put it up on the visualizer and mark it, they realise how badly they do. So little techniques like that you can really engage them with individual students, but you've got 130 students.
Any other questions?
Yeah, feedback's really good.
How about testing the sound? Does that take a while?
No, the editing is you're doing it slide by slide.
Oh,
sorry. The question was, is it difficult to edit? It takes time. Because you're doing it slide by slide, obviously the first time you record it, it takes you the time to go through a normal lecture. But then if I need to re-record a slide, it takes me about 2 minutes or whatever to do that individual slide. The other question was about feedback from students. Interesting creature, students. The students really like it. The only ones that suffer are your mature learners. Because the mature learners say to me, actually, my only protected time away from family and other duties is when I'm at the university, and now you're requiring me to do something in advance of coming. Now, those complaints which were there in the very early days seem to have gone anyway. but they really like the ability to go back and listen to things again. We talked about pace. I think that's really important. There's some students that just get it and want to move on, and there's some students who want to go through it multiple times. The other thing we had before was a lot of things from our disability unit saying, actually for this student, because they've got dyslexia, you need to provide all your lectures in advance to them. Well, it's done. The other thing I don't get is what does this abbreviation mean just before the exam? Because actually they can go through it, listen to it themselves and get that information. So I would say in terms of my workload, it's probably gone down slightly.
All good points. Any other questions?
Is there a question?
Hello, just one question. So a lot of learning. A lot of learning from you, but Fabrizio, my question still remains: how do you make 888 knot?
That's going to be a private session later on. You need to write down his phone number.
Well, thank you very much for this session.